Now, who is Jimmy Wanjigi? His real name is Jimmy Richard Wanjigi. You know, this is the man that has currently been taking over the political scene in our country. He has been the name that is under scrutiny when it comes to the Kenyan political scene, as many are referring to him as the agent of truth. Many are referring to Jimmy Wanjigi as the man that through his words he is going to deliver this country. Jimmy Richard Wanjigi is the poster child of what is broken about the Kenyan dream, the burning desire to accumulate a fortune by whatever means, the business and political influence, servile raw suits, gold-plated dreamless glasses and a fat bank account are not, by all accounts, from a delicate application of honest labor, but wheeler dealing. Is a house at 44 Muthaiga Road, a stone's throw away from the residence of the United States ambassador, is what he has to show for the time he has obnobbed with the wealthy and the loaded in the Kenyan government. Now, here those close to him say he lives like a king. A heated swimming pool, a helipad for his Eurocopter registration 5Y-JWJ, a bunker and a compound with top-of-the-line security features. Buddies call him James Bond, the stylish secret agent, special agent 007. Character created by English author Ian Fleming in the 1960s and acted in iconic films. But Mr. Wanjigi is more than James Bond. One thing about Jimmy Wanjigi is that Jimmy Wanjigi is a paranoid fella. But if you come to understand the truth about the life that Jimmy Wanjigi has lived and how Jimmy Wanjigi has been involved in the greatest scandals of this country, then that name, the agent of truth that you are labeling him with, you shall withdraw it. Unlike other political financiers who show off their riches, Mr. Wanjigi is one of the most secretive politicians in the history of our country. Of late, and ever since the assassination of his rowdy friend, Jacob Juma, the shoddy tenderpreneur has retreated from public places into exclusive clubs for a reason. Mr. Wanjigi, his friends say, he became paranoid after the death of Jacob Juma. And I shall quote one of his friends and what he said. The death of Jacob Juma scared Jimmy Wanjigi. He thought that it was a warning shot directed to him. Now, the only two places it was claimed that Jimmy Wanjigi was so conversant with during the 2022 general election was the Hi-Hat Caramel restaurant and the lodge at ABC Place on Nairobi's Wayaki Way and his office at General Madenge Drive in Nairobi. That is during the time that Mr. Wanjigi was trying to find his way into the politics of the nation. Now, apart from him funding parties, we want to speak about how Wanjigi has been involved in the corruption, the biggest corruption cases of our nation. But if you don't know this, you will live on to sing the praises to Mr. Wanjigi. Now, for instance, successive governments have faced scandals of allegations that donors were buying power through donor clubs, under which the people buy access to senior politicians at private dinners and meetings, which is one of the many moves that Jimmy Wanjigi has exercised throughout his life. Now, thanks to the Kenyan taxpayer, whose money he has plundered with impunity through Anglo Leasing type contracting, Mr. Wanjigi sits like a spider at the center of a web of the trappings of wealth and power. Among his fleet of aircraft is the helicopter operated by Lady Lorry K Limited, a company owned by American couple Jimmy and Lori Denoyer. In the aviation register, the plane is listed as owned by Tile Limited of UAE, a shell company registered in the ISO of Man, but whose beneficiary owner is Mr. Wanjigi. The company is also incorporated in Kenya. Now, here is where we are starting it, so that you will get to understand who Jimmy Wanjigi is. You know, many of you have spoken and have defended Jimmy Wanjigi on the recent move by the police to try and capture him at his 44 Muthaiga home. Where did Jimmy Wanjigi stand? It is through his company that he has used over the years to transact business abroad and make payments to different people locally, including politicians. Before he rose to financial fame, Mr. Wanjigi worked at his father's company in Westlands, Nairobi, where he had found solace after he returned from the University of York, having enrolled at the Canadian institution in 1982, shortly after leaving St. Mary's School in Nairobi, where he was a classmate to the former President of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta. Jimmy Wanjigi left the country in the year 1982 to go and study in Canada at the University of York. Now, he left the university before graduating. That is what was revealed, and that became one of the many reasons why Jimmy Wanjigi was never given a certificate, was never allowed to run for the presidential seat in the year 2022. Like other St. Mary's alumni, the fabled school, which was the bastion of privilege in the 1970s and 1980s, Mr. Wanjigi easily found his way into the governing class, thanks to strong political and business networks of his father and close allies. In his early years before power, opulence and influence found space in his life. The young Mr. Wanjigi opened an office on 5th floor of Ukulima Plaza, and every morning he would drive a red Mercedes-Benz into the allocated slot, or a silver Benz. It was then that he became friends with Brigadier retired Wilson Boynet, who had been appointed to head the special branch in the 1995, with a singular agenda of transforming the spy agency from a tool for the suppression of dissent to intelligence gathering. By this time, the opposition had been weakened by wrangling within Ford Kenya, pitting its leader Wamalwa Kijana against Raila Odinga. Now, the source of acrimony was allegations that Mr. Wamalwa, as Public Accounts Committee chairman, had received a bribe from Goldenberg scandal architect Kamlesh Patil to exonerate the government from wrongdoing in the fictitious compensation for export of gold and precious stones. Are you getting to understand the story of Jimmy Wanjigi until where we have reached? Are you understanding that this man is not an angel that he has portrayed himself to be through the media stations that he has done interviews with? You know, several times you have watched Jimmy Wanjigi tell his story on different media stations. Jimmy Wanjigi has avoided the question of telling how he accumulated his wealth. Jimmy Wanjigi's wealth in Kenya is estimated at about 500 million US dollars, which is more than that. When you speak about the Panama highlight, or you speak about the Pandora papers or the Panama papers, you will find out that Jimmy Wanjigi has been associated with those papers for several years, since several years ago. Now, let's get back to the story. Jimmy Wanjigi gets a part and a way to join the elite in government, and mostly the intelligence gathering committee, after he became afraid to General Boynet, who was then leading the special branch which is right now the National Intelligence Service of Kenya. Now, this led to the split that saw, and now getting back to the political side, there was a fight between Raila Odinga and Kijana Wamalwa, the Ford Kenya, and the Ford Party and the Ford, remember the Ford Asili and Ford Kenya ragos that rose between Kijana Wamalwa and Raila Odinga. Now, there was a division and a split of the party, which saw Mr. Odinga quit to form the National Development Party, NDP. Kenneth Matiba had also fallen out with the Secretary General Martin Shukukude, and the opposition ranks were in disarray. It is during this period that Wanjigi got to know the likes of opposition maverick James Orengo, Mr. Odinga, Mr. Joe Donde, and late Kanu Stilwart, Joseph Kamodo, among others, that he easily infiltrated both the opposition ranks and the government amidst friend and foes. From Boynet, he could get raw intelligence easily on what each and every group was doing. Are you getting what I mean? Jimmy Wanjigi is a friend and a very close ally. He became a very close ally to General Boynet. So from Boynet, he would get intelligence, raw intelligence, on what the government was doing and what the opposition was doing. Remembering that the government then was under Moi, and the opposition was under Kijana Wamalwa and the likes of Raila Odinga. Now, getting this intelligence is what became one of the ways that Jimmy Wanjigi could infiltrate the government. He could infiltrate both the opposition and the government. Now, in the business circles, Wanjigi became a close ally of Sunol Behal, the owner of construction company Krishna Behal and Sons, whose hefty contributions to the then Vice President George Saitoti's Arambe meetings was widely known to the public. Mr. Behal was also a wheel dealer and had emerged as the king of tenderpreneurs. He was among the many politicians, the number one man who had been awarded a lot of tenders during his era. Now, back in those years, he was winning government tenders like nobody's business. That's why he was referred as the king of tenderpreneurs, Mr. Behal, of the company Krishna Behal and Sons. Now, Mr. Behal was also, as we said, a well dealer, and it emerged as the king of tenderpreneurs, winning various tenders to the extent that Parliament was once told by Professor Anyang' Nyong'o that he was so powerful that he could even sack ministers who were trying to correct his job. Behal's life would, however, head scandalously in October 2005 when he collapsed and died after taking what police suspected to be heroin. He had checked into Nairobi Safari Club at Lillian Towers, Nairobi, in the company of a woman at about 1 a.m. and moments later, he was dead. After Behal's death, Wanjigi became the administrator of his multi-million shilling estate, which then included the 44 Muthaiga property, which is now owned by Jimmy Wanjigi and which is his home, where the police had raided recently. Now, he lives there right now. He turned this home, the 44 Muthaiga property, he turned it into a mini Fort Knox, or something resembling the 202 American film thriller Panic Room. And that's why the police could not get hold of Wanjigi when they tried to capture him. Remember, he has been modifying this house since the year 2005. Now, the fact emerged in 2005 civil suit at Milimani Court, where he filed an affidavit as the joint administrator of Sunol Behal's estate. It was while at Ukulima Plaza that Mr. Wanjigi was also introduced to another Mr. Bergman, Nairobi Provincial Commissioner Fred Waiganjo, the man credited by Cyrus Jirongo as having introduced Jimmy Wanjigi into the big business. Mr. Jirongo was the chairman of the notorious Youth for KANU in the year 1992, an outfit that campaigned for President Daniel Arap Moi during the first multi-party election following the repeal of Section 2A of the then Constitution of Kenya. Now, multi sources say so close were Mr. Waiganjo and Wanjigi that when the former PC died, he helped the family to secure administration of the multi-million shilling empire that they were going to lose. It was, however, through his dalliance with players in the intelligence network that Wanjigi became an agent of various contractors looking for tenders in the security sector. I did a video earlier telling you how Jimmy Wanjigi has been a contractor under he has been a contractor of our military. He has been winning tenders and security tenders in our military sector. Now, evidence in our position indicate that his company, Tile Limited, cut deals running into hundreds of millions of shillings. As a result, his name would occasionally pop up in parliament, in parliamentary documents pertaining to scandals, including the multi-billion shilling Anglo Leasing scam. At Ukulima Plaza, an insider in the Wanjigi network said the United States Development and IT consultant, Dr. Melon Kettering, had hired a private office for his company, Tenderpreneur International. Dr. Kettering was a tenderpreneur par excellence, who had been involved in the 250 million computerization of the Kenya Airports Authority in the 1990s. Almost on a daily basis, he would visit Wanjigi's office. Some people thought he even worked there. Dynatech had been registered by the Panama law firm Mossack Fonseca, which is Mossack, and Fonseca is Fonseca. The one at the center of the Panama Papers scandal, which was exposed in the year 2020, which helped the super rich hide their wealth in secret offshore accounts. Are you getting where I'm heading? Wanjigi has hidden millions and billions of money outside our country. Right now, he claims that he can be the leader and he wants to be the leader of this country to liberate Kenya from the poverty that has crippled our economy through President William Ruto. But looking at it, what is the difference between Jimmy Wanjigi and President William Ruto? Now, I want to revisit the Anglo Leasing scandal, which is a scandal that Jimmy Wanjigi was named to be at the center of it. Listen, besides Dr. Kettering, the other director of the company was Rashmikat Kamani, at least between May 25th, 1993 and January 1st, 1996. Now, the fall of KANU in 2002 saw various Moi-era power brokers exit the scene, and Wanjigi was lucky to have his uncle Joseph Magari take the powerful position of finance permanent secretary. It was during this period that Mr. Magari signed a multi-million deal which incorporated Jimmy Wanjigi in getting into government, and also he was able to acquire tenders through the then government under President Mwai Kibaki. I want to get deep into it. I have lost the page of what we were looking at. Now, Mr. Magari signed a multi-billion shilling contract for Anglo Leasing to purchase, supply, and install a passport issuance system in the Home Affairs Ministry. He would later be charged with corruption and abuse of office together with 4 others. Now, he was, however, set free after then Finance Minister David Muiraria and Attorney General Amos Wako told the court that they approved the contract because they believed it was a noble project. What we now know is that Dr. Catering was a permanent feature at the Treasury, where he attended planning meetings for various security projects. Remember, Catering was the man that I told you earlier. Had hired an office at the Ukulima Plaza, where Jimmy Wanjigi also had an office at Ukulima Plaza. So these people were friends. Even people thought that Dr. Catering was working for Jimmy Wanjigi. But after thorough investigation, it was confirmed that Dr. Catering was working for a law firm that is located in Panama, which is involved in the Panama Papers. Remember the Pandora Papers that were exposed in the year 2020, stating that the Kenyatta family had a lot of wealth that was hidden in secret account overseas. Now, getting back to business. It was only after news of the Anglo Leasing scandal broke that Dr. Catering fled the country as questions were raised on the 4 billion CID laboratory scandal. The man who blew the whistle was John Githongo on May 14th, the year 2004, when he alerted President Mwai Kibaki that construction of a forensic lab for the CID was also a corruption scandal. The entire Anglo Leasing scandal centered on 18 security contracts, including a secure passport equipment system and a forensic science laboratory that one never supplied, although hundreds of millions of shillings were paid. It was the scandal that made Githongo, then permanent secretary for ethics, flee to Europe after implicating senior cabinet ministers in the Kibaki administration. He also released a dossier that implicated Mr. David Muiraria. The minister later denied in parliament even having warned Mr. Githongo that he would be killed by Mr. Wanjigi, who kept a low profile as the scandal raged. Remember, people came to know of Jimmy Wanjigi in the year 2005. As you people don't know, there is a man called Humphrey Kariuki. He kept a low profile until he was arrested by the former president Uhuru Kenyatta for tax evasion. So that is the life that Jimmy Wanjigi lived. Now, continuing. But even with the low profile, Wanjigi was advancedly mentioned by the Public Accounts Committee in Parliament in the 2.6 billion passport and forensic lab scandals that also involved the park man who had by then fled the country. While his passport number A796193 had earlier been confiscated, a Nairobi court on May 12, 2006 ordered the Kenyan Anti-Corruption Commission to return it to him. Wanjigi had also been involved in the multi-million shilling telecommunication business. On April 2003, the now defunct Communication Commission of Kenya, CCK, allowed Mr. Wanjigi's Kwacha Group to install and operate VSAT, very small aperture terminal for data service such as internet and email. He would later sue and win a case against a local newspaper, which suggested that the system that he had installed was meant to bypass the telecom system, allowing him to rake in millions of shillings and also get access to people's information. Mr. Githongo, a man of rare integrity, in the year 2005 explained that Anglo Leasing was not a one deal. It was a method of dishonest contracting in which the taxpayer either got nothing for his money or paid more than he should, and that the actor in this trade existed since independence and merely inherited government. That was Mr. Wanjigi. Mr. Wanjigi is now the inheritor-in-chief of the Anglo Leasing scandal. Are you getting the point? Are you understanding where we are coming from? I'm trying to prove to you on who this man that has claimed to be the savior of this country is. Wanjigi remained, he absorbed the intelligence of the nation through General Boynet. Boynet then being the head of the special branch. And these helped Wanjigi to remain anonymous even to the people of the country. His picture was made public about 5 years ago. That's when people came to know of Jimmy Wanjigi. Though he was very highly mentioned during the Anglo Leasing scandal in parliament sessions in the year 2006, but his face was not known to the people of the Republic of Kenya. Are you getting the point? That's it for now. Wanjigi, and let me tell you, if you listen to the current interviews that Wanjigi has done, he always avoid the question of where he had been before he came into the limelight. What business did Wanjigi contract? How legit were the business that this man Jimmy Wanjigi contracted? Even when it comes to speaking about money, you people might think that the president of the Republic of Kenya is a very rich man. Yes, he is a very rich man. Though through corruption, he has also attained wealth. But when you dig deep into the story of Jimmy Richard Wanjigi, you will be surprised of how rich people are in our country. This man has brushed shoulders with the who is who's in the Republic of Kenya. I tell you that. For now, we leave it there. I remind you, this is Celeb Corner KE, political stories. And today, the story is that of Jimmy Wanjigi. Tell me what you have to say in regards to this. See you in our next video.